Before we get started, make sure to check out Sleeve Chief's newest project they have going. It's essentially you submit your own sleeve, and if your sleeve gets picked, you are able to actually have it made, and you also get some store credit. I love that they are encouraging creativity, and I think it's really dope if you submit a design and you actually have it made. So look into that if you want. And if you want any products from Sleeve Chief, just make sure to use my code SHADOW for 5% off at checkout, and you can use my affiliate link in the description box if you want. You're also helping to support the channel that way. Alright, so let's talk about some staple cards that you have to own for this next format. With the ban list going into effect tomorrow, we have a new format upon us. It is not that different from the last one, but a couple changes did happen. So I feel like we need to discuss some staples because there are very prominent decks at the top, and we want to be able to counter them as best as possible. So if you have any of your own ideas when you're done watching this video, please make sure to leave it in the comments down below, and you can contribute to the video so more people will pick up good cards so they can beat the meta. And also, if you like me doing these types of videos and this particular one, make sure to like it as well and share that with me in the comments. So the first card I wanted to talk about is going to be Triple Tactics Thrust. I understand it is not that cheap right now, but we are not talking about budget staples in this video. This is the only card that's more expensive, so that's a good thing. But yeah, Thrust I feel like is something you really need right now because hand traps are still quite popular, but not that many of them actually see play. However, when they do, they are so impactful. You have different cards, and we will mention one of the hand traps later down the line in this video, so I won't go too in depth. But basically, you try to play hand traps as well as some going second cards in the forms of spell and trap cards. So Thrust is going to be really useful because you can either use it because your opponent uses some hand traps during your turn, so Thrust will be live, or you can use it when you're trying to break a board and your opponent uses some type of disruption because a lot of their monster effects are going to be, for a fact, activated during your turn. The great thing about Thrust is that some of the targets for it are also really impactful in today's metagame, and a couple of them are going to be Impermanence, Harpies, Herald of the Abyss. Some of these staples are also really useful and could be part of this list, but I really just wanted to focus on the 5 we're going to be talking about today. But yeah, you have some really good targets, and not to mention that you can also just use it as part of your engine as a search. So there's decks like Branded, for example. That's like the best example probably because Branded Fusion is such a good card and you can get it with Thrust. And also it's just going to give you an edge. Look at Flunder, for example. It is this deck that just won right now, and I get that this was last format, but still there was a lot of Unchained in the meta and all of that, and Flunder is going to be a good contender, and you can just utilize this type of card, which is impactful and is going to sort of push your strategy to the next level. And like I said, there are a ton of targets. Flunder, of course, is going to be searching the Harpy's Featherstorm, which is busted, so you can always sort of look for cards that you can get with Thrust, which are going to make your turn much better, or give you some kind of additional disruption for your opponent's turn, follow up, whatever it may be. Thrust is going to be really important. So if you're willing to spend the money, I would suggest you get Thrust. And I did say there is one target that's really good, and if you noticed, I did mention Talents before when I was talking about it because it's actually a separate card on today's list. Talents is going to be a really good card, and it's pretty much due to the reasons that I already listed when it comes to Thrust. And Thrust is a little more flexible. I'm not sure if that's the correct word, but because with Thrust you can use it if your opponent activates a monster effect at any point. That might be a tiny bit better, but going first, if they don't have any monsters on the board, Talents is going to be better, so you can draw into your non-engine or engine if your hand wasn't perfect. Or if your hand was perfect, you can just check your opponent's hand, take an additional hand trap out of it if you want, or take a piece of engine. And it's also so good that you get to have all of the knowledge of what their turn is going to look like because you know exactly what their hand is consisting of. Not to mention that the steal effect is really strong against Unchained, which is the best deck in the meta right now. It is just so good to be able to take their monsters because for the most part with Unchained, you're just waiting for them to build their board, and then you're trying to break it. And with Talents take effect, I think you're going to be sort of it's going to be easier for you to establish that and actually try and break the board. Moving on to some other staples in the form of spell cards, we have book cards. Book of Moon, Book of Eclipse. They were so prominent in the last couple of formats, and still they are going to be important. I love the fact that they are so versatile and can be used against many different decks, either as sort of like preventing them from building a board or breaking their board. I think that's just amazing, honestly. Against Unchained, you sort of, with book cards, you want them to put up the High King Caesar so you're able to book it. So it is not the most amazing card because you don't know what board they're going for. However, they can get severely punished if you open the book card going second. Now, going first, you can actually like set it as an additional disruption. That way, like, you can actually prevent them from doing plays. And it's not just against Unchained. There are many decks that want their like first couple of plays to go through so they can continue comboing. And some of these decks are actually going to be rogue decks or like tier 2 or something like that, but we have a very diverse meta, so you essentially have a lot of different matchups covered just by playing book cards. Now let's talk about some other meta decks against Pearly. Obviously, book cards always prove themselves useful going second, so you're able to like force them to use a trap card or prevent them from ranking up. Against Rescue Ace, it's also really cool because for most of their cards, they actually like need a Rescue Ace monster or a Hydrant specifically, so they get additional effects. Against some combo decks, which there aren't that many, and you have some of these like mid-rangey combo decks like Dragon Link, for example, you're also able to just straight up trade with a negate, which is also good because you have quite a lot of non-ninja right now, or at least you should be playing it. So if you're able to pair a book card with, like, for example, you hand jab them before and then they have like one disruption, maybe two, you have a book card and then there's only one left for you to deal with. So that's why I also like both of them. And also Eclipse just has good coverage against decks that put up like a big board, so you're able to more easily deal with those types of decks. Again, there is a lot of diversity right now, so you can't really be 100% certain what you're going to be facing. Now let's talk about a hand trap. Nibiru is a really good staple right now because it has great coverage against most of the top decks. Now let's talk about Unchained and Nibiru for a second here. There is a ton of content out there right now with people like putting out combos about how to play around Nibiru or how to play through Nibiru. And, you know, yes, Unchained is able to, for the most part, play through it. However, a lot of times you're going to be able to just force them to play either a little awkwardly if they are not that well versed with the deck, or if you hand trap them in this perfect point, you know that they're going to put up a board that's going to be a little more easily broken. So Nibiru is not ideal, but it puts them on, like, you know, try to play around it, and is this weird mind game of like, do you have it? Should they be playing around it? Are you using it at the correct time? And yeah, you know, I think it is still something you have to side in against Unchained, but you probably have to have other cards to deal with the deck as well. But Nibiru doesn't have good coverage only against Unchained. There's other top decks that you can just punish them quite hard with Nibiru, with Rescue Ace now being quite a good deck, sort of rising in popularity and power and everything. There are still builds going for the terahertz, and with that line you are going to lose to Nibiru, so if you face someone doing that combo, you know Nibiru is going to be useful against them. Salamangreat is another deck that's gaining quite a lot of popularity. There is also like just other decks. I keep mentioning all of the diversity, and against many rogue strategies you're going to be able to use Nibiru. And of course, if you look at your main deck, you have only a certain amount of spots you can dedicate to tech cards, so you might want to use them for really impactful cards or just generic stuff. Ash is like one of those. It's not on today's list, but it is a really good staple. And Nibiru would be next to Ash, or should be next to Ash in my opinion, because when it is used, it has a ton of impact. So yes, Nibiru is another staple I wanted to talk about today. And for the last card, I also wanted to cover a trap card. Now this wasn't intentional, but we do have spells, traps, and monsters in today's video, so that's cool. But yeah, the last card is going to be evenly matched. I wanted to mention it, not because of Unchained, because Unchained is actually able to not completely lose to it. If the player is good, they will make sure they still have resources when you're done with, the battle phase and you've used up your evenly. They can still put up stuff on the board. So you really didn't achieve that much unless you're up against like a bad Unchained player, which I'm not trying to bash, but But against Rescue Ace, it is really, really good. If they want to play through evenly, or negate evenly, I should say, they will have to go for the terahertz line. They can get punished by Nibiru. If they don't want to play into Nibiru, they are going to probably lose to evenly matched if they put up too many cards, which of course they will because they get a set 4 or up to 4, but usually they will set 4. What's also great about using evenly against Rescue Ace is the fact that they will not have resources in the graveyard, and you want to make sure this happens. With their Headquarters field spell, they're able to like shuffle back and make Turbulence live again, also get a draw, so you just want to cut them off from as much as you can. And again, there's other decks in the meta that you can use evenly against because they will put up boards, you know. Against Pearly, you are most definitely going to use this card because you just want to get rid of the field spell, my friend, like everything that they have. If they go kind of like, if they put up a lot of stuff on the board, you want to be able to sort of level the playing fields, especially if you have something to deal with Noir or whatever XYZ they decide to put up if they cannot rank up. So it's great against that. Then you have Labyrinth. It's also going to be able to deal with that board, especially if they commit too much. And just overall against rogue decks, it is almost always going to be impactful. Not to mention like some of the combo decks, again, you're able to trade with negates. Yeah, in my opinion, evenly is something you should be considering. And with that, that's actually going to be it for the video. There's a ton of cards you probably should be playing right now. I mentioned some of them in this video, like Harpies and Herald of the Abyss, or you can use Exorzian Core, Ash, Impermanence, some of these staples. But you know, for the most part, if you look into getting those 5, I think you should be covered. So yeah, please share all of your own ideas in the comments, like the video, make sure you are subbed and notified, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.